Amtrak is one of the most important railroads of the United States. It goes from the most busiest cities to the less busiest little towns and rural areas. But it also does transport a lot of people, whether that be for leisure or business or pretty much anything you want to do with it, it has you. Whether you like it or, well, don't like it, you have to admit, most of the trips that you do take on Amtrak are actually quite beautiful, whether that's by going through the Rocky Mountains or going through the entire Northeast, or exploring the beautiful sights of California or Oregon, or going through the Cascades, through the Cascade Mountains. Well, things haven't been going right for Amtrak due to a huge amount of reasons, mainly from the president to equipment issues and many other things. And today we're going to be going over many of these issues, starting with number one, which is hard beginnings. But to start this off, we cannot just go head in. No. Let's pull the brakes here and let's go through how Amtrak came to be. Chapter 1, Hard Beginnings. Back in the 1970s, many American railroads who were on the top really struggled. This was because of the growth of the automobile and the highways. Most people left trains to die off in favor of either taking the bus or getting their own vehicles to drive. Due to this caused many railroads to be forced to raise fares, reduce service, or do other measures to save money. This also led to lack of maintenance, as well as forcing them to run ancient equipment from at least 20 to 30 years ago, which didn't help their case at all, making them look very obsolete in the public's view. Now, this would be like this until in 1970, the government stepped in when Penn Central filed to discontinue some of its passenger routes. At the time, President Richard Nixon would sign Public Law 58-518, or known as the Rail Passenger Service Act of 1970. Now at first, this will go under Rail Pacs, but in 1971 would come into the world as Amtrak. Now, many people didn't have faith in Amtrak at first, because it inherited old equipment and was pretty much stamping its logo and just running with it. Now, to get rid of this reputation, they attempted to get more newer locomotives, whether that's via overseas production or domestic production within the United States. Their first ever new locomotive would be the EMD SDP-40F. That would be placed only in the West first, but later orders would cause them to go everywhere in the country. Now, this was to be a good thing. I mean, they're new, they're enhanced. What's not there to love? Well, a few things. Yes, they were pretty gorgeous to look at, and they were pretty fast, and they did help out. But many reports from the crews stated that the engines would sway side to side constantly, and also have a tendency to derail. Now, all of this would lead to an investigation by the FRA, the Association of American Railroads, EMD, and Amtrak themselves, leading to multiple flaws being exposed, such as the 6-axle arrangement, the water tank in the rear of the locomotive for steam heating, weight distribution between the cars and the engine, as well as the terrible track conditions. During this, the Burlington Northern, Chess System, and Louisville and Nashville hated them running on their trackage due to the many derailments, leading to the Chessie System banning them in 1977 from their tracks, while leaving the constant swaying or causing the rails to widen and start to break apart. Amtrak would later on go ahead and buy either pre-existing locomotives or new ones, or other trains, such as Metroliners from Penn Central for the Northeast Corridor service. Or, over here in the Midwest and the West, they ordered much different things such as turboliners, or also known as RTGs, which also did birth the creation of the RTLs later on, but we'll get into that later. And the GE P30CH. Now, these guys did put in their fair share of work, but along with that, they also did have their fair share of issues. The P30CH was described as being too oily, as well as not having any form of sound protection, no AC, the trucks once again, as well as the unfortunate habit of catching fire at random. Well, as for the RTGs, they broke down a lot, as well as having permanent coupling, meaning they could not add in more cars if service demanded it, especially on highly populated routes. Also, they were never permitted to go through a buff strength requirement, leading to many drivers feeling unsafe. Now, as for the RTLs, they did have some success. They did stick around for until the early 2000s, but they did suffer a lot during their second phase of life, or aka rebuilds, suffering many mechanical fires and breakdowns. In their third phase, they would have ran, but they were withdrawn due to the AC issues, leading to a mess with New York suing Amtrak in 2004, claiming that they have been failing to operate them. Later on, Joseph H. Boardman, who previously was the commissioner of the New York Department of Transportation, also known as NYS DOT, and later became the Amtrak CEO, accused the other CEO, David L. Gunn, of saying he stole them, and how they threatened to find a new operator for New York. Now, Amtrak would find success. Now, backing up back into the 70s again, Amtrak struck gold twice with EMD, from 1975 to 1978. Well, first, in 1975, EMD provided Amtrak with the godly, almighty famous EMD F40PH, which would become a smashing success for not only Amtrak, but for other passenger railroads, even across the country, such as Via Rail in Canada, the MBTA in Boston, Nashville's Music City Star Train in, Music City in Nashville, Metra in Chicago, NJT for, New Jersey and New Jersey Transit. And yes, I'm going to be a foamer here and say Ace, Coaster, and Caltrain. There you go. I gave you what you wanted. In 1978, in collaboration once again with EMD, but also with another company, ASEA, they both created the AEM-7, which replaced the Metroliners, remaining GG1s, and the god-awful E60s, also piquing the interest of Mark and SEPTA. Everything was really good with these guys, until in 1987. I know where this is going to go now, and I'm sure you do too. On January 4th, in 1987, Amtrak's 94, the Colonial, was roaring down the line at around 125 miles per hour, while up ahead, Conrail B36-7s were sitting after the crew, who were under the influence of marijuana, missed a low speed and stop signal, and were now sitting on the main line that the same train was coming down on. The train did make an attempt to brake, but it was not enough. It slammed into the Conrails at around 120 miles per hour, causing the rear Dash 7 to blow up, as well as throw 903, the leader, to the west side of the tracks and cause 900, the trailer, to get crushed by the amphitheats that tumbled behind it. Out of the 660 passengers on board, 15 were unfortunately killed, and about 174 were injured. This was originally the worst crash in Amtrak's history until years later. But before we dive into this, we need to discuss the second famous engine on Amtrak by far now. Now, to introduce it, we first have to transition back west to when the F-40s were close to retirement after showing their age for a long time. Amtrak this time went to GE for a new engine that they want to be more fuel efficient, fast, and powerful, submitting an idea that would later become the P40DC, also known as the Dash 8 40BP, or also known as the AMD 103. The first one, numbered 800, would be delivered at around 1993, but this same year would also feature its very first crash. On September 22nd, 1993, at around 2:53 a.m., Amtrak Sunset Limited would have a major crash at Mobile, Alabama, while on its way to Miami, Florida, after coming from Los Angeles. Out of the 220 passengers, 47 people, including passengers and crew, were killed while drowning and burning alive when diesel fuel spilled inside the cars and into the river. P40DC 819 was leading, as well as having two F-40s, numbered 262 and 312, which ended up being scrapped in the end. And 819 was the first of the Genesis series engines to be scrapped.
We got cars burning, people in the river. Can't swim. We need help. Any kind of help you can get down here.
I thought.
Chapter 2, the 90s and 2000s era. Amtrak would focus on their high-speed Northeast Corridor line and hire up Alstom and Bombardier to collaborate and create a high-speed set, which would later become the Acela, as well as bring in their old AEM-7s for refurbishments so that they can extend their years in service. And Amtrak was focusing on their California routes, which also was called Amtrak California, to replace the equipment there as well as make it more diverse and recognizable. Now, Amtrak at first took interest with the F-59 PHI to do this, but didn't like how it wasn't aerodynamic, thinking it would consume more fuel that way. So what they did was go to EMD to develop the F-59 PHI after recommending to make it look streamlined. And to be honest, it kind of looks like a more skinnier version of the MP36. Sorry, big fat egg. Joining the order in 1995 were the Alstom bi-level dubbed California cars by them, and then a second batch in 2001 and 2002. However, to remedy the issues, they were refurbished in 2009 at the Mare Island facility to make them more reliable for service. In addition, the Northern California and Southern California services feature a unique paint scheme that is very separate from the Phase 4 paint scheme at the time. For the Pacific Surfliner first, they feature a unique mix of dark blue on the top half of the cars with white separating the silver covering the bottom half of the car, which very, very much blended well with the F-59 PHI, which in this case made the colors go down its nose, sliding down and wrap around the front ditch lights. Totally awesome. For the Capital Corridor in San Joaquin's and NorCal, they're basically the same brand. It has a darker blue that only goes over the windows and leaves the car mainly naked in silver. The bottom part has a yellow line at the top that matches with the locomotive, followed by the darker blue line that covers the entire bottom, and with a yellow separating line at the top, with orange where the doors are. As for the F-59s, it kinda varies depending on the time period. During the first few years, they had a mustache-like look for the paint scheme and had Amtrak California on the sides. In the 2000s, they rounded it to make it look like colors are going into the plow and featured an orange multi-arrow scheme. And then finally, after rebuilds to meet Tier 3 emission standards, the front featured the Caltrans logo on the front. Very gorgeous. The F-59 PHI would go to other places on the Amtrak network, such as the Cascades and all the way in North Carolina. The North Carolina Department of Transportation, or NCDOT in this case, for the Piedmont service, as well as the F-59 PHs. I wonder how that research went. Not only that, but the F-59 PH and PHI would both find success for other railroads, including Metrolink and Trinity Rail together. The PHI itself would also find success with Coaster, Sounder, Exo, West Coast Express as well. Along with the new things, there would also be a major accident for Surfliner. I will be reading and summarizing an article by Firehouse and also the FRA report, as well as be using the footage that was filmed.
Crossing, bells ring, warning of an oncoming locomotive. The crossing gates descend, but the confused truck driver suddenly begins rolling forward. The semi stops before crossing the intersection. The driver seems unaware that the truck rests directly on top of the railroad tracks. The train engineer desperately blasts the air horn, hoping the driver will respond. The trailer is completely destroyed, and the wreckage is strewn for hundreds of yards. As for the train, it fares better, but will require major repairs. Analysis of the footage reveals exactly what went wrong.
On February 14th, 2005, a Surfliner train with F-59 PHI 458 leading was taking train 775 from San Diego to Paso Robles, was running into Oxnard when a truck driver at 4:30 p.m. PST decided to stop on the tracks while carrying a load of strawberries. The engineer did pull the brake and blew the horn, but as you can tell, it was way too late for any of that. At around 79 miles per hour, the train slammed into the truck, ripping it open and damaging 458's entire front side as if it ran into the Incredible Hulk. There were injuries, but thankfully no deaths. Later on, the truck driver would be found at fault, but also the crossing too for having a flawed design. F-59 458 would be repaired later on and continue service for Amtrak and continue to serve for a very long time. Even if the 59s were running super well for a long time, change was bound to come. In 2016, Siemens, a German manufacturer for many things, came to the American market to unveil their newest product, the Siemens SC44 Charger. This new locomotive features brand new technology, a top speed of 125 miles per hour, a lighter weight of 260,000 pounds. He's still kind of obese. He's still very chonky. And with a Tier 4 compliant engine, this time utilizing a Cummins V16 4-stroke QSK 95. On May 25th, 2017, testing for the Siemens Charger began, with service beginning on October 27th, 2017, with them replacing F-59 PHIs 2008 and 2011, while others worked alongside their newer brothers up here in NorCal. As for Surfliner, testing began in October 2018, with service resuming that same year with them, letting go of all their F-59 PHIs and giving them off to Metro. With the trend of newer equipment, Amtrak went to Siemens again to develop a long-distance version of the Charger, soon birthing the ALC-42 Charger. 300, the first, would be delivered in June of 2021 as the first, and also went into service on the Empire Builder on February 8th of 2022. 301, the second build, would come along too, but painted in the Day 1 paint scheme to commemorate their first day of service back in 1971. Now, they did have their fair share of issues, such as software and PTC issues, wheel lockup, breakdowns, and adverse weather as well. But they're now fixed, and they've been seen on a lot of routes, including the previously mentioned Empire Builder, and also the Coast Starlight, the City of New Orleans, and the Silver Star, among many routes coming soon. Now, along with this success, they also bought new rail cars to replace the Amfleets and I think the Horizons 2 very soon, called the Venture and the Aero cars. Now, the Ventures can be seen on services such as the Lincoln services, the San Joaquins, the Missouri River Runner, among many other services. Now, the Aero fleet are projected to replace cars that are used on routes like, I believe, the Ethan Allen Express, Silver Stars, Silver Meteor, and I think the Keystone, maybe many other routes, I'm not too sure. These cars will feature a cab car for the locomotive, only for the Ventures. But the Aero fleet will have a battery pack to have a catenary on the top of it, or run with third rail depending on certain places. Also, along with new stuff, they're also aiming to replace the old Acela fleet currently in service with the new Alstom Avelia Liberty high-speed set. There are many delays for it though, but this mainly due to the need of newer catenaries being needed to be put up, as well as the electronics and systems on board sometimes getting a little wonky. But it is a good thing that they are getting their new equipment, since unfortunately in the current day they're getting a real hard reality check.
I'll tell you what's happening. Everything we normally use is breaking. The Charger's breaking. The cab car's breaking. The coaches, I don't even know. Sometimes they're breaking. So with this knowledge in mind, let's look into why this is happening, because it's pretty simple, but the solution is a lot less simple.
Chapter 3, The Downfall. Starting at around early or mid-2024, Surfliner started to suffer immensely day by day due to the age of their equipment or the issues they're having with the Chargers. Mainly it's been the Chargers, since many of them have been breaking down, and at least one of them has given up on life and sprayed oil everywhere as if you dug into a rich oil mine. It got so bad to the point where Surfliner sidelined 2117 and said they will use it for spare parts for other units. That's how bad it was. Some Chargers have put in 8th Street and awaiting repairs, which, well, won't come for a while, as well as for the cab cars such as 6902 and 6953, which are still awaiting repairs after getting into accidents. Due to this, NorCal has been generous, donating a few Comet sets, as well as 2 F40PH and PCUs, those being 90215 and 90225. Please give them back. However, they cursed 90215 by blowing up its battery, causing it to go up in flames. Not the entire engine, but just the battery, causing it to get sent back up here and then back down there to serve again. Along with that, the Dash 8s, being used normally as either switchers or for emergencies only, are being used heavily. Due to this, they're also struggling a lot from the constant use, along with the P42 DCs as well, leaving nearly little to none for the long distance trains coming out of LA. Speaking of P42 DCs, they've been showing their age for a little while now by breaking down and also having issues too. And I could speak to this firsthand since I was on California Zephyr heading to see Big Boy 4014 when my P42s decided to break down. Now, I get it, it was because of high heat at the time and it was abnormally hot, but still, come on now. Now, there was a very horrible case which happened in Washington, D.C. in the maintenance yard. Now, you may know this one very well. Phase 1 Heritage 161 randomly caught fire and went up in flames, burning a few pieces of equipment nearby. Now, hopping back over to the west to Surfliner, they made a redeployment plan, which is showing how desperate they kind of are right now, where they plan to get more from Capital Corridor or San Joaquin's, such as 2 more NPCUs, possibly meaning now 278 and now 218 could go down there, but it's a stretch. But then again, we're receiving cab cars, but very slowly. 81 total cars, including Superliners and 1 Sightseer car, and also some of the 64 series cars over here that we have, and their own equipment from what they have for now. Also, to add to the ever-growing car crisis, due to an inspection by the FRA, all Horizon cars were pulled out of service due to suffering major rust and corrosion being present. For those who don't know, the Horizon cars were built by Bombardier in 1989 for Amtrak for short-haul routes, like some stuff in the Midwest. Many routes depend on these cars, such as the Hiawatha, Illinois Zephyr, Carl Sandburg, the Illini, the Saluki, Lincoln Service, Cascades, Blue Water, Wolverine Borealis, Missouri River Runner, the Surfliner at times, and the Downeaster, which is causing chaos to many who rely on Amtrak. It only gets worse as Amtrak CEO Stephen Gardner resigned on March 19th of this year due to mounting pressure by the Trump administration. Thank you, egghead. To add insult to injury, Trump also may cut funding for Amtrak, making it go from bad to worse. What now? Well, with numerous issues being present, such as equipment issues, lack of funding in future thanks to Trump, and the dread that maybe Amtrak could possibly fail, I'm hoping it could rebound. To do this, there needs to be a collective effort between the states and Amtrak to get it done, as well as a miracle for this situation. The thing I wish for is for Amtrak to get up on its feet and start to power on as it serves many other people so that it doesn't become a derailment of its own.